Good morning, my name is Conan Higgins. I'm a senior at Worcester State University, and I am sitting here with Eric Sutmann. He is the Executive Director of Technocopia in Worcester. Eric, could you tell us about Technocopia's history and how long have you been involved in Technocopia?
Sure, yeah. So Technocopia has been around since 2013. It was started out as a cooperative for a friend of mine who had a small robotics company and who was looking to get more advanced tools that were more expensive and looking for ways to share those with other folks. So I was involved as a member at the beginning. It was a much smaller operation than it is now. And in 2016, we moved from the sort of loading dock that we got started in to the printers building in downtown Worcester. And we've been operating there ever since. We've been we've got about 10,000 square feet, so it's a pretty big space, and we've got about 130, 150 members. So yeah, going strong.
What would you describe Technocopia's mission as?
So Technocopia's mission is to nurture community through access to creative tools, creative education, like workshops, and access to creative workspace. We have, over the years, we've kind of shifted our focus. Originally, it was really just about tool sharing, and it was really about, having member access. In the last couple of years, we've shifted more towards community and community access, which has been an intentional shift that we made.
Do you think its mission has changed over the years, or do you think it's stayed roughly the same?
It has changed, yeah. Like in the last couple of years, it's really been an intentional shift towards community, towards supporting other nonprofits, which really only strengthens our internal community.
All right. How do you find people to teach the shops?
So I mean, generally the folks that teach come from our membership, right? So we have folks who are excited about the tools, who are excited about, who have skills and they want to get more involved. We have recruited some folks from outside, but usually it's like folks who are in the community who care about it, who are like stepping up.
That's cool. I've noticed that workshop classes have declined in recent years. Like, I didn't have a class in my high school. Why do you think that is, and do you have any suggestions for dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is that as education cuts come in, there's always these sort of these sort of Sophie's choices about what programming you're going to cut in public schools, right? So arts programs often fail, any sort of hands-on kinesthetic learning, right? Like home ec is a thing of the past, right? It's sort of considered to take second string to more academic pursuits, right? More purely academic pursuits, which really I think hobbles a lot of people in life. Those skills are really necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, makerspaces are really all about project-based learning, right? And project-based learning is this philosophy of okay, you're gonna learn something better when you need to use it, right? So if you're working on a project, and you need to learn something for it, you're gonna understand why you're learning it. It's gonna make sense to you because you're applying it, and you're gonna put it into use right away. So it's gonna stick with you better. So if you think about every teen movie from the 80s or the 90s, where there's it's always trigonometry, right? They're always talking about trigonometry. Why do you have to know the circumference? Why do you have to know the sine? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to you at that time, right? You're some 15, 16-year-old kid, you're not using it for anything. But if you get into any sort of robotics, if you get into any sort of computer work, there are a lot of disciplines and a lot of projects that you might want to work on, where all of a sudden trigonometry is super important, and what you're putting into it and what you're getting out of it makes a lot of sense. So makerspaces are really built on that, okay, we're gonna go work on projects. We're gonna go do some stuff, and maybe we don't know what we need to know yet, but we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna make our way through it, and then at the end, we're gonna have more skills, and we're gonna grow that way. I think you're seeing more of that come back into education. There's different movements like the unschooling folks. There's a little bit more, like there's a little bit more emphasis on things like technical education, right? Like Voc schools used to have such a really bad rap. It was like, treated like it's like, oh, this is where the dumb kids go. But like more and more you're seeing that there's like, that's where you're learning practical skills. That's where you're actually like doing stuff, and when you learn those skills hands-on, like they mean more to you. Like it makes you a better functioning person. So I think we're seeing that, but it's gonna take sort of a philosophical shift in society.
Yeah, I feel you. Can you share a few success stories of members whose lives or projects were transformed by being a part of Technocopia?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's a few different ways you can go with that. We've had folks who basically graduated out of our space, you might say. So like, one of the big reasons that people come to makerspaces is like, oh, we've got every tool in the wood shop, right? And we've got lots of space for you to work on it. We've had folks who worked out of our space. Two of the guys that used to teach our classes actually, both of them ended up leaving the space because they got their own shops so that they could do contract work on their own, right? And so they really sort of like grew out of the space, which like, we can only call that a success. Like, I miss those guys, they're great guys, but like I'm happy for their success. Similarly, we've had folks who are working on robotics projects, open source robotics projects that have gone on to make a lot of like splashes in sort of like the open source community, I don't know, folks who we've got a guy who just started his sort of like woodworking business out of Technocopia, doing inlaid wood projects, doing like custom leather work, custom sign making, and he does it all out of Technocopia.
So if I ever decide to build a house, you are the guys I need to come to.
Well, there is a difference between sort of like what's called rough carpentry and fine carpentry, and certainly a lot of house building has to happen on site. But we do have guys who are like contractors, for instance, right? So maybe they're not like, you can't like frame your house inside of Technocopia. But what you can do is you can build some of the cabinetry or like get it prepped to then go be installed. Or you can, work on some of the edging, like the wainscoting or, mold, the trim that you might put in there. So there's absolutely a lot of very practical stuff for housework that you can do.
That's cool. I've noticed that Technocopia emphasizes collaboration and open source learning. Can you give an example of a project that emerged from like unexpected collaboration?
Yeah, so 2 years ago when we were having our 10-year anniversary, we had sort of a carnival for our like 10-year celebration. So we like made some like junkyard carnival games, Jumbo Connect 4. We made like a big wall maze. We made all sorts of kind of goofy stuff. And one of our founders, one of the guys from the robotics place, Kevin, lovely guy, decided he wanted to make a fortune teller robot. And so what happened is a couple of the robotics folks and then a couple of the folks, especially one of our artists named Ray, who does a lot of is mixed media visual art, collaborated to make this AI-powered fortune-telling robot that like uses cameras to like recognize your face. If it doesn't recognize you, it asks your name. It'll remember your name. It asks you what you want for your fortune. It ships that off to ChatGPT and gets a fortune from it. And it's ChatGPT, so sometimes the fortunes are a little wacky. Sometimes they're pretty spot on, and it'll read it back out to you. It's terrifying, I will say. It's real creepy, but it's a really cool, collaboration. But we've also seen folks that do like, we also had someone who was commissioned to make this crazy wood trunk, right? And the person who was commissioning it requested that it had inlaid stained glass, which is a really weird trait. And this guy, the guy who was making the trunk, that's not really his forte. But he was able to connect with someone from our glass shop to create the pieces that he needed. They were able to collaborate on it, share some of the commission money, and then make this really cool box that neither one of them was going to make on their own.
Like, you share the money to like a charity?
No, I mean, for them it was like a private commission. So like one thing that we do is, we're not a job shop. People will come to us with projects. Most of the time, we're trying to support our members, the folks in our community. So if I've got someone in the community who does woodworking, or if I've got someone who does stained glass, and I can point, this potential job to those people and support our members, like that's me doing my job.
That's cool. What are some of like the biggest challenges you currently face, and how are you going to address them?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, one big issue is space. We're kind of running out of space. We've talked to our building about renting out more space, but it's gonna be a big jump for us if we ever go anywhere else. We're pretty spoiled with our location. We're right downtown. We've got a super supportive landlord in the printers building. It's gonna be a big question. I don't have an answer yet. Certainly we want to be able to expand what shops we have, but that, figuring out the space thing is tricky.
Mm-hmm. How would you say evaluate your impact in Worcester overall?
Yeah, I mean, that's, that kind of goes back to that like shift towards the community, right? Like, I think makerspaces as an entity can feel very sort of like closed off to the outside. It's sort of like a members club, and people come in and they work on their own stuff and then they go home. Mm-hmm. And we didn't really want to be like that. We wanted to be more engaged with our community. So, a couple of years ago, our evaluation was like not great. It was like the people who were members who came in who were able to be successful, they went on to have their impact, right? What we do now is we have sort of like discounted memberships for like nonprofits, and we are like really leaning into free events. And so those are both ways, like if I can get, for instance, a nonprofit in as members, put tools in their hands and help them complete projects that they're already out there doing, then we are fulfilling our mission, right? We are helping the creative community out there with access to tools, but it doesn't have to be, internal to us. It can be us supporting other nonprofits. So that's one big way that we're sort of like, how are we able to support them? Another big way is, like I was saying before, having more free programming that we can bring people who aren't even members into the space and have them be able to enjoy the space as a community center. So looking at attendance of those, right? Looking at, how many of those we're able to offer. And then I guess the last thing I would say is we also try to get out into the community. So like, for instance, this year, like the last couple of years, we've done stuff for the Pride Festival. Last year we made a gigantic backdrop fan that was like 16 feet wide, as a, sort of like a photo backdrop that people that went to Pride could go to. This year we had a gigantic Stonewall brick that we marched in the parade with. Right. We participated in the Worcester Centennial a couple of years ago, like working on giant puppets to parade. Right. So these sorts of community projects like help us bring that creativity out to the broader community. So that's another sort of thing that we kind of keep an eye on.
What role does Technocopia play in the broader ecosystem of Worcester with local businesses, schools, maker culture, and workforce development?
Yeah, I mean, that really does kind of feed into that, that same idea of like community, right? So we're out trying to support other nonprofits. We're out trying to support their events. You know, whether it's Casita Cultura Latina's like Day of the Dead festivals, whether it's you know, working with like recovery homes in the community. We have a lot of programming that's sort of like intentionally out there trying to make things better in the community. And then there's like more of our core mission, which is like empowering creatives, right? Our members don't all live in a bubble, right? They go out and they do cool stuff in the community. They go out and they're able to be creative professionals more effectively because of their membership at Technocopia. So that's kind of like our bread and butter.
I know you said earlier that some people got jobs as like contractors. Since Technocopia teaches workshops, have they ever gotten jobs in like trades too, specific trades?
Yeah, I mean, we see tradesmen, certainly like folks, we've had folks who are like handymen or like carpenters. I can think of someone who's a construction worker. I can think of someone who's a couple handymen. We have someone, you know, I would say a lot of folks, once they get the woodworking bug, a lot of them really want to go after the fine woodworking. That for woodworking specifically, a lot of them go after that. So you get folks who are go on to like furniture making programs and stuff like that. There's a pretty prestigious program in Boston called the North Bennett Street School, and we've had a few folks who've gone through there after getting really into woodworking at Technocopia.
I noticed that the staff have their like pronouns and their descriptions on the website. How do you ensure inclusivity and diversity within Technocopia?
Yeah, it's yeah. So I mean, like, we're this sort of service organization. We have facilities, we have machines, but ultimately, Technocopia is a community, right? First and foremost, we're a community, and so we want to make sure that everyone in the community feels welcome. We want to make sure everyone who comes into our space feels comfortable being there on their own, being there with other members of the community, being in a crowd, whatever. So, you know, we have in our code of conduct, you know, pretty clear guidelines around interacting, right? And like being part of the community, being a positive member of the community. You know, we take stuff like mansplaining seriously, right? Like that's a real thing, especially in certain shops. You get like, I don't know, I hate to point fingers, but mostly you get these like older guys who are like retirees and they know everything, you know, and they, you know, you kind of gotta pull them aside and be like, like, give people their space, right? Don't let people, again, it goes back to the project-based learning, right? Like, let people, if they're not hurting themselves, if they're not destroying the shop, let them make their mistakes. You know, and I think when you really promote that as a culture, when you really make sure that you're giving respect to everyone, that you're listening to people, I think listening is probably the most important part, you see that change in like who's showing up and how comfortable people are feeling. So yeah, it's an intentional thing.
I did trade school last year, and my instructor told us that he's taught people who have never touched a nail or a board in their lives. How do you engage with people who have no experience in a workshop?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, actually. You know, I mean, our tool trainings are intended to kind of take you from zero to, maybe not zero to hero, but like zero to, you know, able to work independently and safely, right? Because ultimately that's what we want, is we want people to be able to come in, work on their projects, not hurt themselves, not ruin the shop, right? And then work from there. I think, that's been a challenge for us in the past, and and we're like working on a class right now called How to Swing a Hammer. It's a working title.
Wow.
About trying to bridge some of that gap, right? Because there's a surprising amount that people don't know, and even people who think that they know, right, might have learned wrong. A lot of people who like think they know find out, somewhere down the line that actually you're not supposed to, hold onto the chuck while you, tighten the drill, like run the drill to tighten it. You should do it by hand, right? Small things like that, right? What are the names of the different drill bits, right? Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing that we rely on there is our community, right? Folks are there together, folks are there to get support. And I've never seen someone ask for help at Technocopia and have the answer just be like a cold no, right? Maybe it's a like, I can't right now, but I'll be right with you. Usually it's a like, oh yeah, let's talk about this, right? The people who are in the space and really engaging are there because they care about this stuff and they care about learning and they love helping out. I don't know, that's the community. And so we rely on each other to like help us kind of fill in some of those gaps.
I noticed that Technocopia teaches a variety of activities and group workforces like vinyl cutting, screen printing, and sign making. Do you have like a favorite activity to teach, or do you like teaching them all the same?
Me personally, my favorite, that's a fun one actually. I think my favorite is probably personally the laser cutter. I don't know, I've been involved in Technocopia and the laser for 12 years now. I still love to watch the laser cutter work. It is fascinating. It's just, I don't know, you just watch this machine go around and burn holes in things. It's mesmerizing. And I think it's really empowering for folks to be able to learn how to make things so quickly, right? Woodworking is a skill. There's a lot of knowledge that goes into that before you're really making stuff. Laser cutting is like so quick to like go from, not knowing anything to being able to make stuff that's really cool. I'm kind of an artist, I'm kind of a graphic designer. So like for me, if I hand draw something and then I'm able to cut it out of wood on the laser and I can see my own hand strokes reflected in that, it's very satisfying, and I love to see that in other people. So the laser to me is like the coolest.
Those can like melt your skin, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, luckily we have, like our laser has some safety features, right? So if the door is open, it won't fire. If the chiller's off, it won't fire. So minimal risk. I will say we in the past we had lasers that were didn't have that sort of safety feature, and it was much scarier. These days, it's actually a really safe tool to use.
What are the most common injuries that you've seen?
Most common injuries?
Yeah.
You know what? Splinters.
Splinters? Oh wow. Okay, you guys are safe then.
We don't get a ton of major injuries, right? So there's not really like a trend there. I would say one big one, I guess if I were going to say one big trend, it's when people aren't wearing protective equipment.
Oh.
Not wearing eye protection, or like wearing gloves when you're not supposed to, not wearing gloves when you're supposed to, that sort of thing. The wrong protective equipment is probably where we see the most injuries.
What do you see Technocopia in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going strong. I think I'm hopeful that we will, be able to increase our membership. Right now, where we are, 130, 150, I'd really like to see us get up to maybe like 200. At that point, we might be kind of at like cruising altitude. That might be our sweet spot. I would love to see, I got a couple daydream shops that I'd love to see. I'd love to see ceramics. I'd love to see maybe a machine shop. We've talked about, is there some world where we could do automotive? We're on the 6th floor, not right now, but we'll see what happens. So it's a great question. We take the opportunities as they come, and we see what the membership's looking for. We follow their lead, and we'll go there. Stay connected with the community and deliver what they want.
All right. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own community workshop?
Yeah, it's a big undertaking. Look into fundraising, and don't be afraid to start small. Really don't be afraid to start small, and you don't have to solve everything all the way. Not everything has to be the best version of a tool, but think safety, look into fundraising, and think about maintenance. Maintenance. That's the biggest secret, is you got to keep those machines running, and that takes a lot of work.
I know Matt is a member of Technocopia. I can only imagine how frustrated he is dealing with IT stuff here. So he could probably, if he fixes the machines there, I can only imagine how frustrated he'd be.
Yeah, I think Matt, he'll let me know. He'll let me know when the machines go down, which is good. We rely on that from the members, right?
Oh, yeah.
I may not be using the vinyl cutter. I may not be using this or that for a few days. And so, I need those squeaky wheels. Let me know, what needs attention. So, it helps.
All right, it looks like that's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in to The Beat for Worcester State. I will see you later.